Roughly 1 in 8 American adults is now taking a GLP-1 drug, not 1 in 8 people trying to lose weight, 1 in 8 adults, full stop. And when users describe what actually changed, they rarely lead with the number on the scale. They describe something going quiet. There's a phrase that has come out of this, and it's the most interesting thing in the entire story. They call it food noise, the constant low-level mental chatter about eating, what's in the cupboard, whether to have the thing, the negotiation with yourself at 4 in the afternoon, thinking about lunch halfway through breakfast. Most people who have it don't realize it's a describable phenomenon until it stops, in the way you don't notice a fridge humming until it switches off. On these drugs, for a lot of people, it switches off. The food is still there, the wanting isn't. That's a pharmaceutical story. It's also a story about an entire industry that spent a century building its economics on the assumption that the noise would always be loud. Because think about what a snack aisle genuinely sells. Not calories and certainly not nutrition. It sells the resolution of an impulse. Almost every product engineered in the last few decades has been optimized for exactly that. The salt-fat-sugar ratios tuned so no single flavor ever quite satisfies, the specific crunch, the resealable bag that nobody reseals, the placement at eye level by the checkout where you're standing with nothing to do. It's a category built on the assumption that the urge exists, arrives regularly, and can be reliably converted into a purchase. Remove the urge and you haven't damaged the product at all. You've removed the reason the customer was ever standing there. And the purchase data has started to show it. Buying of sweet and savory snacks among these households is running down by something like 10%. Meanwhile, yogurt is up, fresh fruit is up, protein snacks are up sharply. That isn't simply people eating less of everything, it's people eating differently. And there's a mechanism behind it. These drugs slow how fast the stomach empties and blunt appetite, which means the food you do eat has to earn the space it occupies. When your capacity is genuinely limited, protein and fiber win because they deliver satisfaction per bite. A large bag of something engineered to be endlessly more-ish loses badly because being endlessly more-ish was the entire feature, and now there's no room for it. The industry response has been fast, and you can already see it on shelves. Reformulation around protein and fiber, smaller pack formats, and a great deal of packaging that has suddenly started shouting a gram count at you. Some of that is real product change. Some of it is the same food with a new number on the front. Both are rational responses. If your customers have switched from optimizing per bag to optimizing per bite, then the winning claim on the label is density, not volume. It's worth noting that the big food companies are not simply victims here, because most of them own both sides of the trade. The conglomerate whose crisps are declining also owns the protein bar, the yogurt brand, and the bottled water. A shopper switching from one to another may barely change which corporation gets the money. The shift shows up as a problem for a category and a manager, not necessarily for the group. What genuinely hurts is that the replacement products tend to be smaller, and smaller packs are harder to make money on once you've paid for the packaging and the shelf space. But the more interesting adjustments are happening further up the chain, because this was never only a snack problem. Consider restaurants. The economics of casual dining lean heavily on the items people order because they're already sitting there. The appetizer, the side, the dessert, the second drink. Those are the high-margin lines. The main course frequently isn't. A diner whose appetite quietly switches off 2/3 of the way through the main isn't a slightly smaller customer. They're a structurally different one, and a restaurant full of them has a different business. Consider alcohol, where the effect is genuinely surprising. Large numbers of users report wanting noticeably less of it without having set out to drink less. These drugs act on reward pathways that aren't specific to food, and there's active research into their effects on other compulsive behaviors entirely. If that holds up, the commercial consequences reach a very long way beyond the grocery aisle. And consider every business model that depends on customers not consuming what they've already paid for. The buffet, the family bucket, the bottomless refill. All you can eat works because average consumption is predictable and sits comfortably below the price. Shift the average downward and the arithmetic shifts with it, quietly, in your favor as a diner, and painfully, for whoever set the price. The supermarkets themselves sit in an awkward middle. A grocery chain doesn't especially mind what you buy, as long as you buy, but it minds a great deal how much you spend per visit, and the center aisles it's built around are the highest margin real estate in the shop. Fresh produce is famously thin on margin, so a customer switching from packaged snacks to fruit and yogurt can be worth less per trolley even while remaining perfectly loyal. That's a slow squeeze on the part of the business that funds the rest of it. And then there's the question of what happens at the cheap end, which is where this gets genuinely thorny. A great deal of inexpensive food is inexpensive precisely because it's calorie dense. That's the efficient way to sell energy to people on a budget. Protein, by contrast, is the expensive macronutrient. If a large slice of the market shifts toward paying more per calorie for protein and fiber, that's straightforward for households who can afford it and considerably less so for households who can't. The reformulation happening on shelves right now is aimed almost entirely at the people with money. There's an employer and insurer angle too, and it's arguably where the real money gets decided. These drugs are expensive enough that whoever pays for them, insurers, employers, national health systems, is running a live calculation about whether the long-term savings on obesity-related illness justify the upfront cost. Those decisions, made in actuarial spreadsheets nobody outside the industry ever sees, will determine how many people are on these drugs in 5 years, far more than any advertising will. Now, the caveats. Because the confident version of this story badly oversells it, adherence is a genuine problem. A substantial share of people stop within a year, on cost, side effects or supply issues, and appetite generally returns when they do. The drugs remain expensive and insurance coverage is patchy, which skews the current user base toward higher income households, which happens to be the group with the most discretionary food spending, and is precisely why the effect on purchasing shows up faster and larger than the raw headcount would predict. And a 10% decline in a category is a serious dent, not a collapse. Nobody is going out of business over this in the next year. What makes it worth watching isn't the size of the effect today, it's the direction, and the fact that it appears structural rather than cyclical. Food companies have weathered diet fashions for a century. Low fat, low carb, cabbage soup, juice cleanses, whatever happened to be on television. The reliable pattern every single time was that the fashion faded, the underlying appetite reasserted itself, and volumes came back. The entire industry is built on an assumption so deep that nobody states it out loud, that hunger is a constant and only its expression changes. Product strategy, shelf space negotiations, factory investment, 100 years of category management, all of it rests on that. This is the first thing that has ever credibly challenged the constant. And projections put more than 30 million Americans on these drugs by the end of the decade, which turns a demographic curiosity into a planning assumption. So, an industry that spent a century getting extraordinarily good at speaking to the noise is now working out what it has to sell to people who genuinely can't hear it anymore. Which leaves a question worth chewing over. How much of what any of us buys is actually a decision? And how much is just the loudest voice in the room finally getting answered?